Hey guys, this is Solly, and I'm feeling a little bit better today, and I want to come to you guys with something because this is going to hit the news circuit big time tomorrow. But I kind of have some firsthand information as sirens drive by. Firsthand information because one of my friends in the true crime community that covers the Gypsy Rose Blanchard case put in a FOIA, or a Freedom of Information Act, and was able to get this autopsy before it's released tomorrow after Labor Day. So you guys know the story about Gypsy if you are in true crime and have been following everything. So Gypsy did serve time in prison for an accessory, I believe, to unaliving of her mother, Dee Dee Blanchard. And Gypsy's motivation was she was driven by her mother's sickness, which we would call Munchausen's by proxy. So Munchausen's disease is when you create an illness or over-exaggerate an illness to get attention. It is a medical diagnostic psychopathy. And so Munchausen by proxy means that you make somebody else sick. And this happens a lot of times with mothers and children. Like, for example, it happened to Eminem or Marshall Mathers. So Munchausen by proxy can be very difficult to diagnose because we have a lot of these medical issues that they call like somatic disorders, or where something in your brain is not sending signals, or the signals are getting crossed and it's causing pain, although the body doesn't show any signs. Like the tissues and the nerves don't show any signs of pain being there. The brain is saying that there's pain there. So did Gypsy suffer from some type of genetic hereditary, which we're going to kind of talk about in the autopsy? How sick was Dee Dee? And therefore, is there any inclination that Gypsy herself might have been sick? And maybe Dee Dee did overemphasize this, but I think this autopsy report is really important. So let's just get right into it. Okay, so as we know in the Gypsy story, Nick and Gypsy had gone on a train or a bus or somewhere, and in that time, Gypsy had posted a cryptic message to Facebook. And so neighbors who had not seen Gypsy or Dee Dee in those few days did a welfare check on the Blanchard house in Missouri. So the medical examiner arrives at 12:50 a.m. on June 16th. And they have her back at the medical examiner's office at about 1:30 that morning. They've got her backed up and ready to go to the medical examiner's office. And then they begin the autopsy at 12:50 p.m. that same day. So her autopsy occurs within about 12 hours of them finding the body. That's pretty typical. That's pretty average. So the MD that does her autopsy is Jeff Harkey, and he did have an assistant helping him. So they begin the autopsy at 12:50 p.m. So they have a 255-pound, 5'2", 48-year-old female. So immediately they notice that she does have some extra fatty tissues that would go along with the obesity, like a fatty liver. And so we're going to talk about some of these problems that Dee Dee could have been experiencing. So as I stated, when they get her body to the medical examiner's office, which they had bagged her hands and put her in a body bag, she's already in early decomp stages. Rigor mortis has already passed. We always say in the funeral home, on average, it's about 12 in, 12 out. So 12 hours to get into rigor, and then it takes about another 12 out. So they put her time of death on June 14th at 3:13 p.m. And she's not found for about 7 or 8 hours. And then by the next 12 hours that she gets to the medical examiner's office and they start the autopsy, that would make about sense. That rigor mortis had already passed. And then they notice skin slippage around where she has been attacked, especially in the face and chest region. This is just where the skin starts to kind of break free from those underlying dermal, because that blood flow isn't getting to the skin. So it's in the medical, or in the mortuary community, it's called skin slippage. They also notice that she has lividity on her stomach, her anterior side. So that means that she would have passed away laying face down or prone. And so the lividity, or the blood, is going to go to where gravity goes. So if she was laying on her stomach, then all that blood is going to drain into the stomach and into the anterior aspect of her body. So we know that she was laying face down when she's found. So her gallbladder had been removed, her appendix had been removed, and she had had a full hysterectomy, and she also did not have her tonsils. So this makes me believe that maybe there was something more to Dee Dee's health than we know. No brain lesions, a healthy cardiovascular system. Obviously, she has some obesity, but she still has a healthy heart, no clotting, no embolisms in the lungs. She does have a bit of a fatty liver. Almost all of her blood had bled out, so she exsanguinated. She did have food in her stomach, and there were no meds found, and her toxicology report is completely negative. There is no alcohol, no medication, nothing within her system, but I am going to come back and touch on that. A little bit of inflammation and scarring again in the liver. We talked about this with, the obesity and possibly some of the medication she could have been on can have these effects on your liver. So she was found wearing a nightshirt. She had the sheets pulled up about midway to her back. So she was kind of positioned and covered post-mortem. She also endured a wound post-mortem. Okay. So it kind of seems like there's some over-unaliving there. Her medical history states that she was diabetic. She had endometriatic cancer. So that would be, so that's why she had a full hysterectomy. She had asthma and she had high cholesterol. So whenever we're talking about diabetes, we have to kind of get into some insulin. So there are a couple of different kinds of insulin depending on what type of diabetes that you have. And I don't know all that information yet, but sometimes in a tox screen, especially since the tox screen didn't take place for 24 hours after TOD, then that means that insulin could have rapidly metabolized and not been picked up on a tox screen, or she could have just not been on that type of like a high pump insulin. She might have been on just using insulin when she needed it, like an inhaler. That's another thing. So was insulin and an inhaler found in the home? So let's get into the more unaliving aspect of the autopsy. Okay, so Dee Dee received 17 sharp edge wounds to the back, neck, and chest. She received 6 to the chest. One went from her right armpit to the midline, axillary, meaning going across in the right direction. And every wound track states that a double edge or a posterior and anterior sharp edged weapon was used. This one went 4 inches deep and hit her lung, her right liver, and nicks the edge of her diaphragm. The other really bad wound that we're going to talk about is to the right supraclavicle area. So that would be where your collarbone is, and it went obliquely downward, was about only a ½ inch wide, but it went down about 8.5 inches deep. And so that's just a really sharp, that's a really intense, that's got to be a really long weapon to get that. So basically, when they open her up, she has 750 milliliters of blood inside her lungs, 100 milliliters in the cardio sac, and she also has some bleeding in the abdomen area. Now, her neck on the back side had also had 2 stab wounds. One went 6 inches deep, and one went, again, about 4 inches deep to the right side of her neck. So, and then she had multiple incised wounds to the neck, one on the left hand. So did she defend herself? And she had scratches on the neck. So you guys tell me what you guys think about the autopsy of Dee Dee Blanchard, and what questions does this raise when we're talking about the guilt or innocence and the justice of Gypsy Rose Blanchard. Drop your comments below. Again, I'm not going to be doing my regular content. I'm still half wallpapered over here and getting my production ready, but I will be back soon. Mwah!